I am definitely the coolest guy at the Traverse City Home Depot, for what it's worth.
No doubt about that. There's no question.
No question.
Dave is the coolest man in Michigan. I've heard of Michigan. A lot of fine people there, but none come close to Dave Connell.
A lot of very fine people, huh?
A lot of fine people on both sides of that peninsula.
When I'm retired, I'm gonna work at Home Depot, and every idiot that comes in, I'm just gonna Home Depot's gonna hate me. I'm not gonna sell anything. I'm just like, you don't.
Dave, when you first saw Ron Swanson, did you have like a revelation in your heart? Like, oh, there he is.
There must have been 100 people before I ever watched an episode of that show. It was like, have you ever seen Parks and Recreation? they're like bourbon, sawdust, and really your attitude towards everything. Like, this guy is you.
Isn't Ron Swanson actually just who Nick Offerman really is in real life?
Apparently it's just him.
But he's not libertarian at all. He's hyper liberal.
Yeah.
So he does have all the same handyman hobbies and makes a lot of things and has a workshop and stuff, but he is way left. He's zero libertarian, destroy the government in his heart. It's pretty funny.
The breakfast foods, check. Woodworking, bourbon. I'm totally with him. I'm worried that what you said was bring me a lot of eggs and bacon. That's not what I said. I said bring me all of the eggs and bacon that you have.
Oh man, that was my favorite complaint from our retreat, was that there was no bacon or sausage, and our meat and potatoes veteran crowd was just like, that's not breakfast. Where's the bacon?
I don't need.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't need anything. It drives me crazy in Europe too. It drives me crazy in Europe to here's a little cold cut or some fruit. I'm like, no. I'm gonna eat 3,000 calories for breakfast, and then I'll have to worry about if I get another opportunity to eat today.
The rocks.
It's always pastries though. I'm not a pastries for breakfast.
Yeah, it's straight sugar, and you just feel bad an hour later. And I can't help myself because I love sugar. So I'm like, oh, cool, I have 6.
Perfect. Or it's a croissant, and it's 47 calories of just butter and fluff, and you're hungry immediately. It actually makes you more hungry, primes the pump, and then there's nothing else to eat because you're in freaking Europe.
So I got this bad boy. No calories, no substance.
You know what?
Anger.
How come I don't have a? Hold on a sec. Let me see what I've got here in the hotel.
See what I can break out here.
See if I can figure out this place. See, this is a hotel fridge.
Here
we go.
I came ready to go rodeo this morning. I have an actual cup of coffee, and then I've got that monster sitting there for it.
Garrett's going to come back with a Perrier.
Not a Perrier. It's not a Perrier.
Perrier's on board.
San Pellegrino. San Pel.
It is the Southern California Perrier. Rocks.
How long until
French?
How long until Perrier and San Pellegrino get on the energy drink train and they're like, Perrier, but with skulls on the bottle?
Hold on.
Didn't that already happen? Isn't that Liquid Death or whatever that company is?
I actually really like Liquid Death. Because I like
it's water. What do you mean you really like
water,
it?
Dude.
It's water.
It's just water.
What the fuck does that mean?
Gosh, you two are insufferable.
It's water. Don't turn this around on me like I'm the crazy person.
It's water.
I really like water. I always knew, right whenever
you guys are done,
out of a water bowl.
Whenever you guys are done,
in South Carolina, that water was for me. You guys tried this new thing, water, unbelievable.
Water is one of the hits.
Dude. You know what I like? I like t-shirts. I like t-shirts.
Water is one of their products. They make spicy water too. They make carbonated water, flavored water. You know the Olipop and Good Pop and all that crap that is in the all that tasteless crap that is in the headquarters, Garrett. I like
Olipop. Yeah,
they make an extremely low sugar soda, and that's what I drink. There's there are in this can there is 2 grams of soda.
Ooh, there you go.
So I like soda, but soda's terrible for you, so it's my replacement for soda. That's it.
Just notice, for anybody listening or watching, just notice we're desperate. We have San Pellegrino, we have Monsters, we have Liquid Death, because we can't find the mother Rippets. Where are they?
Let's just say we're sponsored by it. Let's just start doing it. Let's just start drinking Rip It on the show.
Print up my own banner.
By
Just hang a Rip It banner in the office.
Just flash a big Rip It logo. Yeah.
We have a lawyer now, right? That's what lawyers are for. But I can do whatever I want.
This is all
I guess it
evidence
depends on which
when we get
jurisdiction,
sued.
right? Which jurisdiction are we in? Can we get away with this? Also, producer Ian is going to have to bleep out that language from earlier.
Yeah, that's an Ian problem, not a Simon problem.
But you can tell the emotion that we've got charged up on this Rip-It topic because dang. Okay. I like t-shirts. I don't know about you guys. I love me a t-shirt. And
Big time.
sometimes I drink water and it's delicious.
Mhm.
All right. Welcome to the Goat Rodeo Podcast. I'm Garrett Smith, your host. I'm joined by Dave Cottle and Simon Kuhn, regular co-hosts. We talk about stuff like geopolitics, venture capital in the defense technology industry, policy, everything in between. And where do you guys want to start today? It's early. I'm on Pacific time, and it's very early. No
Well,
opinions.
I mean, we could do our bread and butter and start geopolitics, but
Let's do that. Let's do that.
all right, never mind then. I'm gonna shut up.
So I was in Taiwan recently. We dropped the last pod, and I think I was in Taiwan during the recording. Pretty sure. I'm upside down on the time zone, so I'm not quite sure where I am in the world. But I was in Taiwan, and it's an interesting place. I used to live there. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people. Obviously, it's a flashpoint, and there's always this question of will the Taiwanese stand up and maybe defend themselves in the event of some cross-strait crisis? Does the Chinese military, do they invade? Is it an amphibious landing? Is it a whatever? And there are all these questions that swirl around that topic. Well, on the independence topic, like, does Taiwan actually want to be independent, or do they actually just want to be Chinese? I asked everybody that I met. I probably had 10 or 15 conversations with people from all walks of life. I think this is interesting. Maybe you guys do, maybe you don't. I'm going to ramble on until I get to my point, and then I'll pause and see if you guys want to move on. But talk to people from all walks of life, 10 to 15 people, taxi drivers, grocery store clerks, restaurant people, defense tech people, investors, met a couple of staffers from, the political apparatus. And it corroborated a lot of what you see in any academic treatment on this topic or polling data coming out of Taiwan. And it is that there's something like 20% of Taiwanese who are really independence-minded. Like, they might not mind terribly if their government formally declared independence. Maybe I'm overstating that. Maybe I'm not. And then there's something like maybe like under 1% of Taiwanese people who think that actually rejoining China or joining China might be the best option. And then the rest of that, 80% or so of Taiwanese people love being independent, but they actually just kind of prefer the status quo and don't want anything to change. But push comes to shove, they see themselves as Taiwanese, and I think that's quite interesting. And the current government under William Lai is very much an independence-inflected government that is saying things that rile the Chinese up pretty significantly. And anyhow, I don't know if you guys have thoughts on this, but there's this kind of looming date of 2027 when the Chinese are supposed to be wanting to take Taiwan back as, the last chess move in the Chinese Civil War that's been going on for 100 years. What do you guys think?
I don't see it. I don't see, and I've read plenty of the think pieces, have been for a long time, all through the Thucydides trap hype and all that different stuff that Graham Allison wrote. So I've been following this issue for a long time. I just don't see where China, in the China that we know for the past 30 years, suddenly becomes an expeditionary, expansionist military power, i.e., the things that they think of as their sovereign territory. They have been very content to slowly coil around economically and culturally, and have not really shown a desire in like the capitalist era of the Chinese government to send troops and become the bad guy of the world when they know that they can just wait it out. They're They have a much longer timeline of how they're thinking about this. Taiwan's not going anywhere. It's going to sit right there next to me, and all I have to do is grow around it, and it'll become just like Hong Kong. So I have a really hard time envisioning the world in which China decides that it is more valuable from a geopolitical standpoint to spend blood and treasure to get a thing that they can probably get just through osmosis.
That seems like kind of the slow transition pathway. Seems like the thing that would likely play out over the next couple of decades, or maybe a generation, who knows. But they don't see taking Taiwan as an expeditionary expansionist play. They see it as the last province in a civil war that hasn't fully ended.
Totally.
And I bet you dollars to donuts, which is a silly phrase that I've never verbalized out loud. It's a dumb thing to say. I don't know why that phrase.
Garrett's dollars versus my donuts. I know who I'm betting on.
That's right. That's my bet right there. Donuts.
So
I bet you Xi Jinping, the president, wouldn't mind if it was a high probability of win. Wouldn't mind being the guy who finally finished out the Civil War and reunited all the Chinese provinces. So it's not expansionist. The expansionist would be like China wants to go on the warpath and take the Korean Peninsula, which for thousands of years has never been theirs.
So,
right?
so what I mean when I use that term, what I'm saying is like being expansionist is a footing that China's not on and has never really been on. And not being on that footing means they have not practiced this kind of thing. And they know that. They're not stupid. So separately from like a Russia who has experience crossing an international border and like finding out how different countries react, also a military that's built to move and built to like bring its logistics with it. Granted, the logistics are not overly complex in the distance from China to Taiwan, but they are complex in like the geography of Taiwan and where you can land ships and where you can bring supplies in. Those are hard. Those are the hardest parts of sending an army to war. That's what I'm thinking of there. So China's not that. They're not built for that. They have not built their military to go cross the water. It's built to say, step on my country, see what happens. It's not built to go overseas or to travel really any distance.
that was going to be that was my question for Garrett, Simon, is the deterrent part of this for China, right? Because like it's to your point, like terrain and geography are natural deterrents. This is possible, but it's really hard, right? This is the probably the biggest amphibious sort of operation since D-Day, or would be. There's also a risk, like Garrett, how do they feel about who do they think is coming to their aid, right? Does Japan play here? Australia? Like, what is China thinking about? Who's coming to help Taiwan in this situation in 2027?
I don't think anybody is.
They're completely on their own.
I'll take that hot take too. I think nobody comes to their aid.
I do. I think we talked about this last week or maybe the week before, sometime on the podcast. I think President Trump and the current American population, as reflected in the U.S. Congress, is going to be very loath to deploy human beings and hard military assets into a conflict.
I see economic responses, but yeah, I don't see anything that's like, oh, I'm going to send Americans to go die for that island. No way.
You brought this up last week, Simon. Like, one of those economic options is something akin to hard military power, but it's foreign military sales, right? It is, and it's military assistance. So I actually think that right now, nobody expects that a President Trump and the U.S. Congress authorizes physical intervention. And like, they're even questioning whether we'll do that with treaty allies, where we have allies with whom we have an expectation of mutual defense, right? Like, we're questioning that. And they're like, no such agreement really truly exists for Taiwan. There are some other agreements that govern how we interact with Taiwan. But so are they ready? No. I think they're feeling the same kind of heat and squeeze that the NATO countries are, where the NATO countries are realizing, okay, whoa, Europe might actually be our problem, and not specifically the United States problem. Maybe this isn't a NATO problem in Europe. This is a European collective action against Russia problem. I think the Taiwanese are feeling some of that same squeeze. And I gotta say, like, I think that's kind of, at some level, it's a bit of a savvy move. If like the US isn't going to be intervening all over the place, why not pressure Taiwan to defend itself? So
when you think of it from that lens, what is even incentivizing China not to do it right this moment, because this is the lowest ebb in American willingness to like meddle in these international affairs it's ever been. It's well documented that our military posture is not and seemingly cannot orient itself towards the Indo-PACOM, certainly not fast enough. The tyranny of distance is what it is. Like, what's the real hard like math for China aside from I don't want people to die?
It's got to be that, but that's my point. I wasn't suggesting that any of these countries are going to like send machine gunners to shoot at amphibious assault boats. I mean, like Australia, Philippines, NATO, like they won't send troops, but they very well can or could impose sanctions that are as harsh as those that we have on Russia. And China's entire economy is completely export driven, right? I mean, is that?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Can they is a very complicated question, right? You can put really harsh restrictions on Russia because you're not nearly as heavily as dependent on Russia's raw materials to make all of your own industries function. Where all these countries, there's not a single rail car in Australia that wasn't built in China. Like they have whole massive industries entirely dependent on this Chinese supply chain. And that happened a couple decades ago. And that cuts both ways for sure, right? Like so yeah, that's a good point.
I think China has developed over now a generation or two this incredible gray zone capability where they can influence and affect their region and their backyard through gray zone activities. This is like, developing random shoals and atolls into things, or, ramming Coast Guard vessels with fishing vessels, like the whole.
The Filipinos will come to the Taiwanese aid. They'll send their fishing boats with swords. It'll be awesome.
Right. So, but I think the deterrent here is that there isn't full confidence on the Chinese side that they could do it and not get pulled into just a terrible Taiwanese insurgency, or like,
that's the only thing I see.
They've
potential for a long insurgency. That's the play, right? Like,
that's right. And this, I think this is why the strategy for Taiwan is the porcupine strategy or the poison frog strategy. It's making yourself so potentially sticky, dangerous, problematic that they don't even want to like get involved with that. And to the earlier point, why not just do the thing that's obviously working, which is slow coiling, slow squeeze, economic gray zone stuff? It works. I mean, it's working. And so maybe like the best case scenario is if the Chinese want to do that and America really isn't going to intervene, then don't you think the long play here, and the thing that we're likely to see over the course of the next generation or two, is like a Hong Kong style slow absorption of Taiwan, and hopefully largely peaceful. I don't know. And China, maybe China continues to liberalize. Maybe it ends up being a pretty good situation. Who knows? But having lived on both sides of the Taiwan Strait, I'll just tell you, Taiwan's amazing. And it's what China could have been if it didn't turn hard left. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say, so I think we're predicting the most likely here is that China avoids a full invasion, gray zone pressures, military flights, cyber attacks, information, all that sort of stuff, political pressures. But all the while making it very obvious to Taiwan and the rest of the world that they are shipbuilding and preparing for a large amphibious invasion. They can. Is that
part of the math, right? Like just signaling that you're building it is part of the squeeze.
Okay. Well, I think we probably need to move on to deal book or the next topic. lighter topic.
Well, I mean, it's very clear that they want to be a regional hegemon, right? It's very clear at minimum. And they want to be a global tier 1 superpower in economic terms. And like, what does that look like? Looks like the Blue Water Navy. So anyway, we can move on to deal book stuff. It's pretty light from like a venture deals that I think matter perspective. However, I am noticing a couple of trends with, again, using Taiwan as a segue here, Taiwanese and Ukrainian companies going out for escalating levels of American venture capital in order to bolster their domestic technology sectors and also export that technology to the West. So we've looked at a couple of companies, Sign, Swarmer, a bunch of other drone companies left and right coming out of Ukraine, given that they are the dominant kind of cutting edge of military application for one-way attack and surveillance and other stuff in contested environments. And when I was at the TADT Defense Technology Conference in Taiwan last week, I noticed a lot of companies that have explicit American venture capital backing them, and they're all kind of in the drone autonomy space, which again is quite interesting. And there's a lot of energy and momentum around the Taiwanese drone industry to build up those supply chains. I think that's part of the porcupine, poison frog thing going on in Taiwan. There's an extra amount of energy that I hadn't noticed there previously. But I do think it's interesting. That's where venture capital is flowing. They're looking for interesting foreign, maybe in our sector, the defense sector, looking for compelling, contested environment technologies that are battle hardened and mean something rather than the untested, not battle hardened alternatives over here in safe, mountain time zone or central time zone. Anyway, thoughts on that? Venture capital going to places like Taiwan and Ukraine.
As the resident venture capital skeptic, how do you get a 10x return out of a company where people are under active artillery fire?
It's a great question. So I think what happens often for American investments into foreign companies, like I think there's a pretty well understood playbook for Israeli companies getting American venture capital and then grow. I think what often happens, there will be like an American operating company, like some company that has exclusive license to the foreign technology stack or whatever. And then a lot of the development and build actually ends up happening in the US, but it's fundamentally a Ukrainian company, an Israeli company, a Taiwanese company. So that's one way it happens. I'm not sure that's true in every case. Yeah, I'm not sure that's true in every case.
And the reason I frame it that way is that, in my limited experience, it feels like often you're making your bet, so to speak, on the founder team and this team of folks that is like driving the vision. And if all of those folks are in harm's way,
Right.
that seems like a much higher risk. Like, what's the math there? It's got to be way harder.
Yeah, you're underwriting risk when you're an investor.
And I think that with American companies too, because there's lots of guys who go out to Ukraine and spend not just a small amount of time doing tech maturation. There's guys that are out there living year on year and getting really heavily involved. I'm like, man, that's interesting work. But also, what happens to your company if the CEO, dies because he was out with Brave Company, getting in the thick of it?
How many?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Garrett, or I guess either of you, how many drone companies do we really expect are going to be platform companies? Do we really expect are going to be really big winners here?
I have a lot of strong thoughts on this. Here's the thing. I actually got asked a question at AFA yesterday, just by a friend who was like, hey, we're trying to buy a bunch of drones. Do you know of a drone company right now that can build me 500, 1,000 drones a month right now? I was like, I don't think I do. So I don't think we've even seen a big winner yet, much less like have an idea of what the structure of a truly successful drone company in that space. Because if you're not cranking out 500, 1,000 a month, then you're not playing at the scale that everyone says we need to be playing at in order to be like useful in the space, right? Like there's customers now who are like, I need 500 a month right now. They exist.
My point is, like, coming out of this, I agree with you. And coming out of this conflict, I can't see more than 5, maybe 10 huge, enduring, like, flying robot winners. Like, wouldn't the play for US-based VCs to be some component or critical technology that supports, it doesn't matter who makes the winning or the set of winning OEM platforms, right? We're talking about rotors and chips and that sort of thing. That's the investment. It's not the actual platform itself, which changes weekly.
I'm of a mind that eventually on the small drones, we're talking about smalls.
Yeah.
Like class 1, group 1, one-way attack, FPV, SRR class drones, right, Dave? So in that category, I think the long arc is commoditization and it's going to be cheap and it won't matter. and maybe you'll have some like there'll be the Walmart brand of it, and then there'll be like the BMW brand of it, but you're going to have like a handful, and it will matter. And the margins are going to be very thin, and that's not going to be a category that anybody cares to invest in. And maybe that's the logic behind not maybe making more of those kinds of bets now. And there are far fewer drone company bets being made in the venture space right now than there were 10 years ago. 10 years ago, like that's all the venture industry could think of because they wanted to build the American or the European DJI, right? And DJI was like obviously crushing, and like there's an obvious growing global market for small drones. I think it ends up commoditizing though. And so the value is going to be in secure supply chains, which is what you're talking about. And maybe even more valuable and lower risk is software stuff. So like the software platform that actually like lives on through, around, enables swarming activities, autonomy, all that stuff. I think the software is where it's at.
I agree. And I don't know, that may be the case in Swarm. I don't know that much about them, but yeah, propulsion, the sensors, the autonomy stack, to your point, probably the communications, and then maybe one of the real big winners here is the manufacturing or the materials too. In addition to the software.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, who knows? But like I'm biased. Software is the most valuable thing, says the software company CEO. So we're biased, but I do think it's those elements that you just listed, and not the whatever, not the drone hardware platform itself. Those things commoditize, in my opinion, over time. Sensors too. I mean, look at how small and cheap sensors have gotten in your phone, in your everything. Anyway, I think that's the trend line, in my opinion, and I don't think there's going to be some giant winner. Defense acquisitions community is very clear about wanting to have a diverse, heterogeneous grouping of vendors in the small space and not get locked into any one, given the experience with AV over the last 30 years. Okay, I saw a headline. Maybe it was just a press announcement. CENTCOM is apparently standing up its own innovation shop. Oh my gosh!
All right.
Oh my gosh! They're gonna
Hey, tell me something good about it.
I can't sign it. I'm usually
Give me one good reason.
I am usually the optimist. I'm like, we're changing things for the better, and this is going to be great, and this is going to help us defend the free world. I'm not. I'm wildly skeptical about this. All right, so what it is, you got the CENTCOM CTO, Joy Schauneberger. I might be butchering that. But you get the CENTCOM CTO, Joy, who reports directly to Corella, going, we're going to do innovation and acquisition better and faster in 60 days, warfighter need fulfilled in 60 days kind of thing. It seems like a lot of theater. It's been described as the way that they described it, it seems like basically a coordination layer more than anything else. So, we've got the Task Force 99s and the Task Force 59s, Navy, Air Force, like innovation cells. It's really just tying them together under a CENTCOM flag, and echoing policies or efforts of the Department of Defense. They didn't talk about new funding. They didn't talk about a contracting office. They didn't talk about their authority to do any of this. It basically looked a lot like virtue signaling with the hard problem of out of funding contract. So my assumption here is it's a bit of theater. Maybe potentially could turn into something in a couple of years if it's intentionally structured and budgeted for. But I'm not taking this super seriously. I think that folks in our space, if anything, what they should do is continue their existing worker relationships with the Task Force 99s of the world, have some existing bodies of work, existing contracts. So maybe if there is gasoline to be thrown on this fire, then, it'll be to those existing sort of innovation cells that this thing is sucking up.
My first relatively unserious comment is it's called the Rapid Employment Joint Task Force. How do you pronounce that acronym? Is it REGITF? RAGTAF. Okay, RAGTAF. All right.
So add a bunch of vowels that don't exist, so it sounds better. That's how you do it.
That's right. I just love that the stated mission or goal of this thing is so vague and bland. Our goal is to rapidly deliver innovation, says Schanneberger. And, like, okay, um, great. You know, does this seem to you like, obviously, we've already thoroughly covered the idea that there's theater and virtue signaling going on here. I kind of have this sense that oftentimes you'll have an ad hoc or kind of a creative organic thing that rises to generate some value or test something. That Red Hill, Task Force Red Hill is one, and Task Force 99 or 59 or something.
59.
59 and 99.
So,
those are both, one's Navy, one's Air Force.
That's right. So they generate some heat, some buzz, maybe even some real hard outputs, some impact. And then everyone tries to like formalize the thing or bottle the lightning of whatever that thing was. And it fails nearly every time. It just bureaucratizes a thing that actually has to be sort of organic. You know what I mean? Am I poking at something that sounds right to you guys?
So here's a couple things I'll say. One, this new thing was created by the CENTCOM CTO, right, Chief Technology Officer, which is the second CTO in the existence of CENTCOM, and the first one served in Task Force 59 before she came over to CENTCOM and became the first CTO.
Skylar Moore.
Yeah, exactly, Skylar. Task Force 59 is not an innovation unit. It was a very focused. We're trying to bring unmanned and AI into these specific problem sets. It wasn't just like a broad, we're going to do all the innovation for the Navy. They never said that. They were like, hey, here's a problem we have. We're gonna get after it with a very specific set of solutions, and we're looking for some inputs. I still do not really understand what a chief technology officer at a COCOM does. We'll start there. I broadly understand kind of what a CTO does in a private business, and I think it's interesting that we see a lot of DoD titles starting to mirror private sector titles. Historically, and I'd heard this from lots of big old primes throughout the years, that the longer you sell to DoD, the more your company is going to look like DoD. You're going to adopt their titles and their structures and their timelines, their funding mechanisms. And you're seeing a lot of this in reverse now, which is pretty interesting. And like that's a fascinating signal to me that DoD is trying to shape itself to look like it's suppliers as opposed to the opposite. That's fascinating. However, the COCOMs are not Title 10 entities. Their resourcing is very different. Their focus is very different. So a rapid innovation unit at CENTCOM to get the best kit into the hands of the warfighter is a very different thing when the war is over. You're no longer at the tip of the spear of what we consider, or what the National Defense Strategy is going to say. This is our focus. This is the war that we're getting ready for. You are now essentially watching proxy wars of other nations, and then trying to drive demand signal like, we need this stuff in order to be competitive in this fight that is not a priority of America, and we don't actually think we're going to go commit to. But
good question, Dave. I think this is a Dave question. I've met General Kurilla a number of times. I actually participated as a panelist or an evaluator during one of the not Scarlet Dragon. What's the innovation forum where they have like members of the 18th Airborne Corps pitch ideas? Do you know what I'm talking
about?
Scarlet Dragon? No. Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair. Scarlet Dragon's the exercise. Yeah.
So I was actually going to say that one of the innovative things that I think General Kurilla did for the 18th Airborne Corps was either start or elevate the Scarlet Dragon exercises as an innovation, a joint force integration activity around joint fires. But Dragon's Lair, I think, was also a Kurilla invention. Again, maybe he just dumped gasoline on that fire. But I gotta wonder if, like, when I participate as a panelist over there, and I don't mean to throw shade here, but and I do love giving like an innovation voice to the junior enlisted and the young leaders in a giant organization like the 18th Airborne Corps. But I kind of felt like maybe it was just a pressure release valve for like the energy of like the junior elements of the unit complaining that things aren't better or whatever, and you give a forum for them to officially voice a thing, and then you offer some minor award or something to like go after that problem and solve it. Young
and then where does it go?
And where does it go? That's exactly what I was just about to say. And so like I think that this might just be one of those activities. It's like giving it's like a pressure release valve for this like need, this compulsion to innovate, but you don't actually know what
I would add another set of incentives into it, because there's a political component to how the COCOMs publicly interact. The COCOMs are also jockeying for resources and trying to make sure that they're getting bigger slices of the pie, because the COCOM is designed to care about its AOR, right? Regardless of whether or not we go back to CENTCOM tomorrow or 10 years from now, CENTCOM's focus is to be ready for whatever could happen in CENTCOM. So they need to figure out how to stay at the top of the masthead and how to drive more resources to their problems, even if they are not the priority problem. So I see it from both of those lenses, but my big complaint about trying to orient the energy towards the COCOMs is like, well, that's where the warfighter is, and we need to be getting tech to the warfighter. That's great for some things, but for a lot of the warfighters, they're going to be trained, taught, educated, and live in a culture that doesn't have those things. And then they will show up to your COCOM for 7 to 14 months. Maybe the thing is there right when they get there. Maybe it shows up halfway through their deployment, and then they go home and the thing's not with them anymore. They can't even teach another person how to use it because they don't have their hands on it. It seems like a really bad way to organize, train, and equip and be ready institutionally, as opposed to here's a shiny object while you're here. You won't even be fighting the war if the war breaks out here, because it hasn't broken out yet. So it'll probably be the next guys that rotate through, maybe, we think, but they won't have it either. I just don't understand what's the long thought process here.
I don't think
there has to be a long thought process here. I think it's like it's a convenient virtue signal that is doing something right now, and who cares what it does in the future, from their perspective. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying.
I think the thing to really come out of, and I'll sort of tie these two things together. I think the tangible thing to come out of Dragon's Lair, because there was no program of record, maybe some mild incremental improvements on tactics, techniques, procedures, or maybe a widget or a better way of doing business. I think it's just education I think it's largely just education for the participants in the formation. It's just bringing some of these topics to the top of mind right before the entirety of force modernization catches up. It's just making us more tech literate, which, to Simon's point about why the heck do we have CTOs and COCOMs, I think the real reason why we have CTOs and COCOMs is because the commanders and the XOs and their staffs are not particularly tech literate. Our schoolhouses are not preparing them to be tech literate or understand how some of these capabilities can integrate into their formations. And I think it's just intentionally putting the expertise to effectively advise the commander.
That sounds right to me. Yeah, that sounds right.
Which is not right. I mean, eventually, I don't think we want CTOs, right? We have XOs and S3s, and we have S6s or G6s, and I think all of those people can fulfill that role if they are appropriately trained through our military education system.
Sure. Okay, well, we're looking for anything, good or bad, coming out of that. The RegTAF.
Yeah, I don't even know what RegTAF resourcing is. So it could be set up from. Yeah, I mean, it can't be.
There's none.
It's not in the JBook. It's not in the planning cycle. It's got
if it was resource, that's the first thing they would have said.
Yeah,
it's just
we're committing $100 million, but like the lack of a number means like
I'm telling you,
we're creating a home that could hold money one day. You watch us.
It is a coordination layer between other smaller innovation efforts. That's it.
So the one thing that was cited in the press release that CENTCOM put out was a combined exercise called Red Sands with the Saudis and some others, and it wasn't even related to the RegTAF. Like, it wasn't even related to this CTO office or anything. It was just a random blurb about a live fire event where they had a drone, I think is why they cited it here, which is, again, marketing spooky magic. You know what? They might not have funding even if they wanted it or were given it, because the government might shut down next week. We are moving into the last segment of this conversation with Simon Kuhn talking to us about the probability that the government remains open for business next week.
So let's set the stage a little bit here. The closer we get to the deadline, the higher everyone's prediction the higher the percentage will be that we think there's going to be a shutdown. Right up until maybe there isn't, and then everybody eats their, goes back on their word, which is fine, because in our business, most folks are trying to manage expectations and prepare you for the rainy day and the worst case scenario. Now, that being said, in the past week, the president has canceled meetings with Democrats to try to find a way forward. The House has emphatically declared that they're going to go into recess next week. So the Senate is in recess this week, which means the two chambers will not be in session as the clock runs out. What does that functionally mean? It means the House passed a continuing resolution before last week. And when they leave next week, only the Senate will be in session. So they can either pass the House version and keep the government open, or pass their own thing and then beg the House members to come back to D.C. to take a vote on it before the clock runs out, which will be 2 days worth of work. It is like true brinksmanship in the race to the government shutdown. And further complicating it is that the director of OMB has now sort of signaled that if you let the government shut down, I'm going to reduce the federal workforce dramatically everywhere. I will not be furloughing, I will be firing, which was the threat last time. Was the Trump admin has a very clear desire to reduce the footprint of the federal workforce, and they have now said in no uncertain terms they see a shutdown as an opportunity to prove that more people can go away, and we'll be using a sledgehammer, not a scalpel, which is like the number one fear. That's a political maneuver, right? Particularly in Virginia, which is getting ready to have a governor's election or a primary there. The federal workforce is a large constituency. If those people are getting fired right and left, they're going to blame somebody, and both parties are going to try to figure out, are they going to blame them or me? What's more advantageous to my my political chances? So, great news for everyone involved. We're thinking first and foremost about what's best for the function of the nation and not at all what's best for our political parties. My money's on shutdown.
Interesting. What's the what's the probability, you think?
I'd put it as 75%.
75% we shut down.
The much harder math is how long is the shutdown? Because that first week of shutdown is true panic for politicians. They all need to go home and talk to their constituents, but they don't really want to go home and talk to their constituents, complain, and explain how badly the place where they work is messed up, why it's not my fault, it's the other guy's fault. So everybody goes into panic. Everybody will come back to DC to get away from getting yelled at by their constituents, and they will immediately set around to the really sticky business of only the leadership negotiating and all of the rank and file members yelling because they're getting locked out of the actual process, right? When you solve something like this, it is Mike Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and John Thune, and that's it. No one else's input really matters beyond the leaders and the president. So everybody has to come back in town, sit on their hands because we're not doing anything other than shut down, but you're not actually allowed to participate in the high-level negotiation.
It makes you think that maybe they could have avoided it with a little meeting of the leadership minds before the extremist situation, right?
They could be meeting right now. They're canceling those meetings right now. The last word out of the White House was that the Democrats' demands are unreasonable, and therefore we're not going to meet with them. And that's a back and forth thing. That just happens to be the most recent salvo in it. But like there's a lot of, hey, we need to get together and talk about this, and then one side will go, I need to pull out and signal to my people that I'm playing appropriate hardball here, because my people can't participate. Only I can participate, and I need to show them that I'm being tough.
I know this is 5 or 6 days out of date, but I watch Real Time with Bill Maher. And last Friday, he had now retired former Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia.
Yeah, who has a new book to sell.
Who has a new book to sell, and he's teasing a presidential bid in 28 and all this stuff. But asked the question, does the government shut down? He said, no, they'll figure it out in advance. And I don't know. Is he more credible than the next guy? And does he just want to say something?
Everyone's guessing.
Nice. And everybody, yeah, okay. All right.
Everyone's guessing.
Fair enough. Well, we've talked, Simon, you and I have talked to some key staffers on the Hill in the last few days who also think there's a credible pathway that avoids shutdown and compromise, but we'll see.
It literally, and you can hang this on any staffer you talk to, whatever is the best thing for them is the thing that they're going to think is likely. That is the nature of politics. If you don't believe in the path that you're driving towards, then you need to get out of the game. So people say this to me a lot with like, well, there's no way that X or Y person was going to win that race. I'm like, running the race means believing you can win it. And so if you are out there thinking that the shutdown is the best thing for your party and the government right now, you're telling people, hey, we're shutting down. I believe like we're all in on fighting the fight. And if you believe that we need to keep the government open for any numerous great reasons, you're going to say the same thing. Hey, I'm all in. I think we're going to find the 6 Democrats we need to cross party lines, or 7 Democrats, and make this work. So once again, everyone's guessing. The town is full of extremely smart people, all of whom have their own 30 and 40-year careers, and they don't have a consensus, which means it's anybody's ballgame.
So what that looks like, so it's happening in my layer too, right, Simon? So what that looks like is, we sat down this week with each of our critical sort of programmatic customers and did a bit of, most deadly, most likely course of action analysis.
Totally.
What are the impacts? How do we structure our current work with you to harden it against those impacts? And they're they're going, my PEO, my boss is saying these outcomes, these people are still coming to work. We could do this, but that's across the board. There's a ton of energy between the vendors, between the customers, between the PMOs. Right now, as my folks or myself are walking in the door, the other vendors walking right back out, and they're going, yeah, okay, Dave, it's time to over communicate with me. Like, we understand. I know your 3 questions. What are the impacts? Are we still going to be able to conduct this project? Is the contract model going to work? Yeah.
Everyone should be doing that. If you're selling to the government, you need to be talking to your points of contact and finding out what their guidance looks like for shutdown. And what you saw under Democrat run administrations that go through a shutdown is oftentimes they furlough everybody because they want the American people to know that shutting down the government is bad. But the current administration has a very strong stance that the federal government needs to be smaller. It doesn't need to be this active, and that they will want to send the signal that it's business as usual. We didn't actually need these people in the chairs. So you're going to see a lot of folks that are getting guidance to keep working through it. You're going to get paid eventually. And then you're also going to see guidance that, yeah, go away. I didn't want you here anyway. So it's going to be a very different tenor, I think, from shutdowns that you've seen when Biden was in office, for example, and there's a political motivation for the pain to be felt. The motivation now is keep the trains running with less people, and we'll prove to everybody that we can actually cut a lot of this. It doesn't need to be here.
I like it.
Sure.
That's my last word on this.
You like it now. The problem is both of these theories are untested. So the guys who are holding the bag and find out their contracting shop seizes and can no longer act, those people will hate it. We just don't know who that is. It could be us. It could be them. We're all going to find out in real time whose shops are good at operating under these really ambiguous rules.
I don't know if you heard me clearly, Simon. I don't like it.
Oh, they said I like it. Sorry.
No, I don't like it.
I heard the opposite.
I do not like it.
Yeah, it's not a great way to run a train station. I'll say that.
Yeah, no kidding. I've been in some pretty bad train stations in the past. Best train station I've ever been in, Zurich, Switzerland. Those dudes, man, the Swiss, gosh, they run a tight train station. They don't know how to run a country that can stand on its own without, the rest of the world looking out for them.
Who needs that?
They definitely know how to play both sides and bank all your Nazi gold, but they can run a damn good train station.
Yeah. My preferred train station is any train station that can only handle one train at a time. Therefore, it's not particularly confusing. You just the train shows up and you're there. Problem solved.
Yeah. That sounds like your perspective on train stations. That would be your perspective.
The American South has many great train stations that are just a piece of concrete, and you wait for the one train to show up. It's wonderful.
I kind of like that. Yeah, simple. Okay, Dave, last word. You got it.
I can't remember which one. I like the train station in Belgium. I want to say
I've never been to Belgium.
Antwerpen. It's right up there with, I think you're talking about the one in Zurich.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also similar, very beautiful, and very efficient.
Very efficient. That was the thing about the Swiss. right on time, like outrageously timely, like punctual as all get out, as they might say in Texas. Punctual as all get out and very efficient. And they don't have time for your American questions either. They don't get time for that.
Yep.
They got to get to the next town.
There's always some anxiety. To Simon's point, there's always a little anxiety, especially in a second and third language.
That's right. Okay, gents, it's been good. I probably wasn't as crisp as I usually am, if I'm ever crisp. I'm okay being told that I'm never crisp. But it's been good. Hopefully the government doesn't shut down next week. We'll check in here in this forum before anything really crazy happens. So tune back in next week for the Goat Rodeo podcast and a lively discussion on the doorstep, nay, on the eve of government shutdown. And we will break it all down for you. We'll see you.